At my father's retirement party, my mom smiled and said, "You're giving the apartment Grandma left you to your brother." My brother laughed and added, "Relax. It's just an apartment." My husband just looked at them and said, "My name is Emily and I'm 30. The band had just finished their speech honoring my father Gregory at his retirement party. Glasses chimed. Someone's colleague laughed too loudly. The string lights from the golf club's patio pressed meek halos onto everyone's hair. I could taste the champagne from the toast still on my lips, the way that dry sweetness hangs on the air when a moment tries to convince you it's perfect. And then my mother Patricia smiled. It was the smile I grew up inside of. Soft, bright, beautifully rehearsed. A pageant smile, a Sunday smile, the kind that tells the room that everything is okay even when the furniture is already on fire in the next room. She leaned in close enough for her perfume to erase the last of the celebration. "We've decided," she whispered. "You're giving the apartment Grandma left you to your brother, Tyler. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community." I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I didn't even blink. I just watched that perfect practice smile hang in the air. My brother Tyler, standing nearby, managed to look both bored and entitled, as if this news was just a scheduling update he already knew about. My father Gregory just nodded along the proud patriarch presiding over his own retirement party. "Emily, did you hear me?" Patricia pushed her smile, tightening just a fraction. "Tyler needs a start. You've had that apartment for years, it's only fair." "Fair," I repeated. The word tasted like ash. My husband Ryan put his hand on the small of my back, a silent, solid presence. He knew my history. He knew what this family was. "It's just an apartment, honey," my father added, his voice full of that false, booming reasonableness he used when he was about to bulldoze someone. "It's for the family." "No," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise of the party. Patricia's smile faltered. "What do you mean, no? This isn't a negotiation." "I know it isn't," I said. "It's a demand." "And the answer is no." Tyler finally spoke, scoffing. "Come on, Em. Don't make this a scene. It's Dad's big day. Just agree so we can get drinks." "A scene," I said. "You mean a boundary?" I turned to Ryan. He didn't even need me to ask. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out 2 crisp white envelopes. He handed them to me. The air around our table went still. The laughter from the adjoining patio seemed very far away. "You see," I said, holding the first envelope. "I knew this was coming. I knew that Dad's retirement would be the perfect public stage to try and pressure me." I handed the first envelope to my father. "That," I said, "is a certified copy of Grandma's will, the one she filed 3 days before she passed. The one that leaves me the apartment free and clear to ensure she always has a place that is hers and hers alone. Her words, not yours." Gregory tore it open. His face, flushed with celebration, slowly turned a mottled, angry red as he read. "This doesn't matter," Patricia snapped, reaching for the paper. "A will can be contested. We're still your family." "You're right," I said. "Which is why I brought this." I held up the second envelope. This one was heavier. It had the embossed logo of a law firm. Ryan's family law firm. I didn't hand this one to my father. I placed it in the center of the table. "That," I said, "is a formal legal notice. It states that since my grandmother's asset was legally willed to me, any attempt by you, my parents, to coerce, manipulate, or threaten me into transferring that asset will be viewed as intentional financial and emotional distress." My mother's face went white. Furthermore, I continued, my voice gaining strength. "It notes that this act of coercion is grounds for Ryan's family to review all future financial entanglements, including the joint trust fund you've been so excited about." That was the kill shot. The joint trust, a partnership between my father's small consulting business and Ryan's family's much larger investment firm, was Gregory's retirement masterpiece. It was his validation. Tyler looked confused. "What? What does that mean?" Ryan spoke for the first time, his voice calm and low. "It means, Tyler, that if you try to take your sister's home, our families are no longer doing business." The silence that fell over the table was absolute. Gregory stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. Patricia's practiced smile had completely vanished, leaving her looking pinched and old. Tyler just looked back and forth between them. finally realizing that the ATM had just been permanently disconnected. How could you? Patricia whispered, her voice shaking. At your father's party. How could you, I replied, use his party as a weapon. I stood up, Ryan's hand still on my back. Enjoy the rest of your retirement, Dad. We drove home in silence. Not an angry silence, just a quiet one. The kind that settles in after a fever finally breaks. Ryan didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't need to. He just kept his hand on the console close enough for me to take if I needed it. I didn't. For the first time in my life, I felt solid. You're probably wondering why I had those papers. Why I was carrying a legal grenade to my own father's retirement party. The truth is, I knew them. I knew this was coming. Maybe not the exact moment, maybe not the specific demand, but I knew the demand was coming. It was as predictable as the sunrise. For 30 years, I had been the responsible one, which is just family code for the one we can take from. When I was 18, I got a partial scholarship to college. I worked 2 jobs to pay for the rest. I graduated with $30,000 in debt. When Tyler turned 18, my father surprised him with a brand new sports car. A $25,000 gift. When I asked my dad how he afforded it, he just said, "Your brother needs a reliable car, Emily. Don't be selfish." 2 years ago, when my father's health insurance lapsed and he had that heart scare, who paid the $12,000 hospital bill without a second thought? Me? Who's been letting Tyler borrow money for the last 5 years, money I knew I'd never see again just to keep the peace? Me. I was the responsible one. There's a term for this. It's the golden child and the scapegoat dynamic. It's a trap. In this system, one child, Tyler, can do no wrong. He is the idea of the family's success. He gets the resources, the praise, the endless second chances, and the other child, me, exists to carry the burdens. I was the one who had to be responsible so he could be carefree. I had to be understanding so he could be sensitive. My successes were minimized so his minor achievements could be celebrated. It's not just favoritism. It's a sickness. The family needs a problem to rally around or blame, and I was it. The daughter who was too serious, too focused on money, not grateful enough. Even when I was the one funding their entire lives. People always ask, why did you stay? Why did you let them treat you like that for 30 years? It's a fair question, but it comes from the outside. When you grow up inside that system, the abuse doesn't feel like abuse. It just feels normal. It's an invisible chain. You live in a prison that has no bars. You are conditioned day after day, year after year, to believe that your only value is in how much you can give, how much you can endure. You learn that love is the price you pay for their approval. Your responsibility isn't a strength. It's a symptom of learned helplessness. You believe that if you just try a little harder, give a little more, be a little quieter, this time they'll finally see you. They'll finally love you. But that night, at that party, standing there with my husband's hand on my back, I finally understood. They would never see me. They didn't want to see me. They just wanted to see what else they could take. The chain wasn't invisible anymore. I could see every single link of it. And holding that envelope, I finally realized I had the key. The silence, of course, didn't last. By the next morning, the counterattack began. It started with my mother, Patricia. She called me at 9 a.m., and it wasn't a call, it was a performance. I answered and was immediately hit with the sound of her crying. Not real grief, but that high, thin, rehearsed sobbing she used when she wasn't getting her way. "Emily, I just can't believe what you did to your father." I waited. "You ruined his retirement party, his one night. All our friends were there. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? To have our own daughter." "Lawyers, Emily. You brought lawyers, Mom. I'm not doing this. He's devastated. He's barely spoken. You took his big moment and you made it about this. About you and your money." "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said, my voice flat. "Is that all you can say?" she wailed. "We're your family. You were trying to take my home. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. My hands weren't even shaking this time. I just felt tired. An hour later, the second wave hit. My friend from college texted me. Have you seen your dad's Facebook?" I opened the app. There it was. A long, vague post from Gregory. No names, of course. Just passive aggression honed to a fine art. A parent's job is to sacrifice. You give your children everything. Your time, your money, your heart. You just pray that one day they remember what gratitude means. It's a sad day when you learn that some lessons never stick. The comments were already rolling in. Thinking of you, Gregory, so true. Kids today are so ungrateful. We're here for you, man. He was painting the narrative. He was the victim. The noble, long-suffering father. I was the ungrateful, cold-hearted child. It was his opening move in a public relations war I didn't even know we were fighting. But the final attack, the one that showed me exactly who they were, came from Tyler. A different friend sent me the link around noon. It was a GoFundMe page. The title, "Kicked Out by My Wealthy Sister." The goal, $15,000. I read the description, and the coffee in my stomach turned to acid. It was a masterpiece of fiction. My family is in crisis, he wrote. My entire life, I was promised that my grandmother's apartment would be my home, a way for me to get on my feet. But my sister Emily just married into a very wealthy family, and she's decided to keep it all for herself. When my aging parents, one of whom just retired, tried to talk to her, she served them with legal papers at my father's retirement party. She humiliated them. I've been left with nothing and nowhere to go. I just need a little help to pay for a deposit and first month's rent while I figure out my life. Please, anything helps. He had 5 donors, $50. An aunt I hadn't seen in years wrote, Tyler, this is just awful. Your sister should be ashamed. An old neighbor wrote, sending prayers. Family should never do this. They weren't just defending themselves. They were actively, publicly, and maliciously lying to paint me as a villain. They were monetizing their victimhood. This wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. This was calculated. This was defamation. I took a screenshot of the GoFundMe page. I took screenshots of my father's post. I sent them all to Ryan. His reply was one word: lawyer. Already on it, I texted back. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about facts. And I was the only one who had them. I knew I couldn't just ignore this. The GoFundMe was a public lie. The Facebook post was a manipulation of the narrative. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. It was a coordinated attack on my reputation. Ryan saw the look on my face. What's the plan? He asked. The plan, I said, is to stop acting like their daughter and start acting like their opponent. The next morning, I was sitting in the office of a lawyer. Her name was Grace, a sharp woman in her 50s, with a reputation for dealing with complex family asset disputes. I laid everything out. The 30 years of financial support, the retirement party, the 2 envelopes, the Facebook post, and finally, the GoFundMe. Grace didn't react. She just listened, taking notes. When I finished, she steepled her fingers. Okay, Emily. First, you are done talking to them. No calls, no texts, no emails. You don't respond to anything. From now on, I talk for you. It felt like a weight lifting off my chest. Second, she said that GoFundMe is libel. It's defamation, plain and simple. We're going to send a cease and desist letter to all 3 of them, your father, your mother, and your brother. It will demand the immediate removal of the GoFundMe page and all related social media posts, along with a full retraction. What if they refuse? Grace smiled, and it was not a kind smile. They won't, because the letter will also state that if the content is not removed within 24 hours, we will file a civil suit for defamation and damages. She was right. The GoFundMe page, along with Tyler's post, vanished exactly 3 hours after my father received the email from Grace. My father's Facebook post was quietly deleted that same evening. The silence was deafening. But Grace wasn't done. They've stopped talking, she said over the phone. That's good. But this was too coordinated. People who plan this well, this aggressively, usually have a history of it. I need you to go back, look through everything. Old emails, text messages, any financial correspondence. I'm not looking for emotion, Emily. I'm looking for a pattern. So that night I did. I sat at my desk, my own home, and I started digging through the digital graveyard of my relationship with my family. It was painful. Scrolling back past the party, past months of one-sided, low-stakes conversations. I went back 2 weeks. 3. And that's when I found it. My blood didn't just go cold. It felt like it evaporated. A text thread from my father, Gregory. dated 2 weeks before the retirement party. The first message read, "Emily, I emailed you some papers from my lawyer. Need you to sign them and send them back this week. Just a small family matter." I stared at it. I had no memory of this. I must have seen it, dismissed it as more administrative work for his life, and just forgotten. I scrolled down. A second text 2 days later. "Emily checking in on those papers. It's for the apartment transfer. Need it done quietly before the party. I want to be able to announce the good news. Let everyone know how you're helping Tyler start his new life." And a final one 3 days after that, ignoring me, "Won't make this go away. We'll discuss it at the party if we have to." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment idea. It wasn't a drunken, grandiose gesture at his own party. It was a trap. This was Plan A. He had tried to get me to sign away my inheritance in the quiet of a Tuesday afternoon, hoping I wouldn't pay attention, hoping I'd just sign it to be the good daughter. And when I didn't respond, he moved to Plan B. He waited. He gathered his audience. He stood on that stage, surrounded by friends and colleagues, and he ambushed me. He weaponized the public setting against me, assuming knowing how much I hated causing a scene. He tried to corner me, relying on 30 years of conditioning to make me fold. This wasn't just selfishness. This wasn't just favoritism. This was cold. This was calculated. This was premeditated. I felt the last bit of childish hope inside me, the part that always wondered if I'd just misunderstood him, shatter into dust. He wasn't just misguided. He was meticulous. My hands stopped shaking. I took a screenshot of the entire conversation. I attached it to a new email. "Grace," I wrote. "You were right. They plan. I think this is the proof you were looking for." This wasn't an argument, it was an ambush. I hit send. Grace's office sent a final letter to my father's lawyer. This one was short. It contained only 2 attachments, the screenshot of the GoFundMe page and the screenshot of my father's premeditated text messages. The message was clear. The first was defamation, the second was proof of intent. Any further contact would be met with a lawsuit for which we now had indisputable evidence. Checkmate. The silence that followed was absolute. No more angry phone calls. No more crying voicemails. No more Facebook posts about gratitude. It was the heavy, complete silence of people who had run out of moves, who had finally understood that the game was over. A week later, Ryan and I changed the locks on our apartment. It was a small, practical act. A 30-minute job with a screwdriver and a new brass deadbolt. But as I dropped the old keys into a metal trash can, the keys my parents had insisted on having for emergencies, the sound they made was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It was the sound of a door closing, not just on my apartment, but on the 30 years I had spent living in their house even after I'd moved out. Time passed. The season started to turn. The air felt cleaner. Then, about a month after the party, one last letter arrived. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope addressed to me in my mother's elegant, looping handwriting. I stared at it for a long time. Ryan saw me holding it. "You don't have to read that," he said. "I know. But I did. I needed to see if a single thing had changed." I sat at the kitchen table and opened it. It wasn't an apology. It was a masterpiece of emotional blackmail. "Emily," it began, "I am writing this as your mother, heartbroken. Your father is devastated. He hasn't been sleeping. Tyler won't come out of his room. You have torn this family apart, Emily. You took a private disagreement and turned it into a public spectacle. You hired lawyers against your own father. Whatever mistakes were made, they weren't worth this. They weren't worth destroying 30 years of family. I hope this victory feels good. I hope you're happy with what you've done. We are waiting for you to be the bigger person. We are waiting for you to come home and apologize." I read the letter twice. I waited for the old guilt to rise up, that familiar sickness in my stomach that told me I was the problem. But it didn't come. There's a difficult truth that no one prepares you for. It's the realization that sometimes the most necessary act of self-preservation is to cut ties with the people who were supposed to be your anchor. We're taught that blood is thicker than water. We're taught that family is forever, that forgiveness is a duty, that walking away is the ultimate sin. But that's a trap. That belief is the invisible chain that keeps you drowning. It makes you believe that your loyalty is more important than their respect, that your silence is required to buy their peace. Walking away isn't an act of hate. It's an act of profound self-love. It's choosing not to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm. I looked at her words. Torn this family apart. A family that was already broken. Be the bigger person. Their code for be the doormat. Come home and apologize. Apologize for what? For not letting them steal from me. For protecting myself. For finally, after 30 years, saying no. I thought about the $15,000 GoFundMe. I thought about the text messages proving their calculated ambush. I thought about my father's rage and my mother's tears, and I realized none of it was about love. It was about control. They weren't heartbroken because they missed me. They were furious because they lost access to me. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen shredder. I fed the letter into it, and the sound of the machine grinding her words into thin, useless strips was the first real apology I had ever received. It was the sound of closure. I went to my phone. I opened my contacts. Gregory. Block. Patricia. Block. Tyler. Block. Ryan walked into the kitchen and saw the shreds of paper in the bin. He just nodded. I looked around my apartment. Our apartment. It was just a place. But for the first time, it felt safe. Family isn't something you owe, I said, mostly to myself. It's something you build. It took me 30 years to learn that lesson. 30 years to realize that responsibility without respect is just exploitation. I don't know who else needs to hear this, but if you're in a situation where you feel like you're the only one holding the family together, maybe it's time to ask yourself why you're the only one pulling. It's okay to let go of the rope. Have you ever had to make that impossible choice? Let me know your story in the comments. Because the truth is, you're not tearing the family apart. You're just stopping them from tearing you apart.